his knowledge, his wisdom, and putting it bluntly as you like it, is an unparalleled quality that he possesses, which we all admire. He sits on the boards of Samsung India, International Tractors, and is the chairman of National Branding Committee of CII for 2020-21. Quite a biggie at what he does. He is an author, prolific actor, well-known television commentator, etc., 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 and has only 4.7 million followers on Twitter. He's somebody with monochrome hair, but a pop-colored life. So let's begin the session and see where our wacky conversations head.
Thank you, Mr. President, for taking it over. I was a little hooked up because of the glitch. So I, on behalf of MCCI Retail Committee and Chairman, I once again welcome all the joinees, as well as the two most eminent personality as introduced by Mr. Vivek Gupta, President. And I'm sure that we all know that during this pandemic, we are confined to homes, and there is a saying that after 60 days, our behavior becomes an automatic habit. So the biggest challenge of marketing or the marketer around the world is to understand how the consumer will behave in terms of purchase. So pre-COVID, I think marketing department was one of the busiest department in attracting and retaining the customers. But during this COVID period, when things are slowly opening up, organizations are coming active. All departments are coming slowly to a life except marketing. In fact, in my organization too, marketing department is the last thing which has to do anything because of the cut in expenditure in terms of advertisement, ATL, BTL, everything. But I'm sure with today's conversation, we all will be able to understand how to utilize our marketing during this challenge under this situation and bring ourselves to the maximum possible under this period. So I welcome once again all the attendees, the eminent panelists, and I'll a special thanks to Mr. Hardeep Singh, who has been instrumental in organizing this particular webinar. So over to you, Mr. Hardeep. If you have to say a word, then we can start.
नमित जी, पहले हरदीप सिंह जी का इंट्रोडक्शन तो दे दीजिए. हम सबके गुरु रहे हुए, हम लोग बहुत सीखे हैं उनसे. हमारे तो बॉस है एड क्लब में, हमारे पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट हमको नौकरी से निकाल देंगे ये.
It's difficult to introduce him, but of course everybody knows Mr. Hardeep Singh as the ex-MD of Polar Fans. Now he runs his own consultancy, consulting a lot of other companies, very close to these two people. So I think let Mr. Hardeep Singh do the honor and say a few words before we start.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you first, Suhail and Swapan, both of you. Despite being very, very busy, you have taken time off. It's a wonderful gesture and we are obliged. We appreciate it. We appreciate it, MCCI. Thank you, Vivek ji, that you have done the job of introducing them totally. So my job is not there. I only have to say a few things. Swapan, I have worked with him and passionately in building up a brand. And I think I have not seen a person with better alacrity of mind and action, so quick in his thought and not thought in just one English language only or Hindi language, but he can think in 3 languages or 4 languages simultaneously. Hats off. I think I have not seen a better sharp person in advertising and communication than Swapan is. So Swapan, we are glad that you are here. I don't have to say anything except that I have enjoyed my journey of life professional with you and with your team, and I continue to look forward to having more such meaningful times in future. Suhail, of course, is a person who has evolved beautifully. I think the biodata has been told by you, and it's a privilege that Suhail, you are here. I think the best thing is that Suhail brings on the table is his broad-based thinking, not just on the advertising or marketing or business, but the world as a whole. And I think it is for that reason that Suhail, you are well known, not only in this country, but across the globe. You are a Calcutta guy, so hats off to you. And over to you, both of you.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you. So can we start?
Yes, Mr. Swapan, please take the...
Oh, great. So my first question was kind of preempted. Those are the worry areas when you circulate emails. But Suhail, really, psychiatrists have said that habits change. Stop behavior for about 60 days. Which in your mind were the most important habits that changed during the pandemic? And what were the seismic changes to consumer behavior? And how do you think marketing will respond to these changes?
So I think Mr. Bajoria should worry about the company he runs if he believes that the marketing expenditure should be cut immediately. That would be the silliest thing to do. There's an old saying, in bad times, you must advertise. In worse times, you should advertise. Coming to consumer behavior, I think 3 or 4 things have happened across the world. And I'm on webinars. Hardeep was very sweet in saying that, but I'm on webinars across the world, across time zones. And 3 or 4 things have become commonplace. Number one, people have come to believe that the only certain thing in the world is uncertainty. Never has there been a moment in modern history which has completely straddled the entire world. Not even the world wars impacted every country like the coronavirus has done. The wars had limited impact in the sense of the havoc they unleashed. What we are also seeing in terms of consumer behavior or marketing or manufacturing is that no one knows what will happen in this new world, but certain trends are visible. Number one, more and more people are going to be comfortable through security and safety. Earlier, lifestyle did not, warrant safety, security, hygiene. These things are going to become ultra critical. Number two, I think brands are going to stress upon easing consumer anxiety. Stress levels across the world are very high. In India, I was in favor of the lockdown, but not in favor of the timing of the lockdown. I think we are coming in for perilous times. I foresee at least 3 to 4 quarters of economic havoc across all sectors. Automotive, hospitality, you will see hospitality suffer grievously. Almost 60 to 70% will be knocked out. And when I say hospitality, I talk about restaurants, I talk about hotels. I also talk about real estate, which will suffer grievously. You are going to see a bloodbath come September once the EMI moratorium is over, because you will have a run on the banks. The banks will suffer, NBFCs will suffer. So you're not seeing a very, very robust picture. If you look at all the guidance given out from the Reserve Bank, who's got a great governor now in the form of Shaktikant, and if you listen to other wise people, today conserving cash is key. But conserving cash is completely antithetical to kickstarting an economy. And if you don't spend and you don't do the kind of stimuli that even the UK has done, I mean, no one imagined the UK to do what they've done. So you see portentous times. The advantage, Swapan, is that the consumer in all this will suddenly and has suddenly again become the king.
Interesting.
It has moved from a market of the manufacturer to the consumer, because the manufacturer has very limited areas available to approach consumers. The consumer, therefore, is king. BMW yesterday announced a huge package for, and this is unbelievable, for a high-end brand like BMW to actually offer unbelievable rates, unbelievable financial structuring, means people are worried. People are worried about consumption. No economy works, and this is where Narendra Modi and Nirmala Sitharaman have been outrightly stupid. And I will use this phrase, outrightly stupid. See, chambers of commerce can't say this because you're up their ass every day. In the sense, you need them to inaugurate some bloody AGM, some meeting, some nonsense like that. These two people have not understood that in order to improve the economy, you have to increase demand. You have to increase consumption. See, it's the consumer end that they have forgotten. By giving SOPs and all doesn't mean anything. And I will finally end, and Swapan can then pitch in. One of our clients, and it's a two-wheeler client, the biggest in the world, we are seeing a kind of a resumption, almost 90% levels of pre-COVID times. So obviously rural markets are coming back quicker than urban markets. But the three quick readings, Swapan, are There is a lot of consumer fear, oblique uncertainty. There is a desire amongst consumers to conserve cash, which means there'll be limited spends. And the third, to my mind, is the change in equation, where the consumer will now call all the shots and not the manufacturer. But there'll be sectors which will bleed. And sadly, these are the sectors which are also the largest employers.
Well, taking off from what you feel and said about consumers, I think the interesting thing is that today you're addressing consumers who are undergoing deep fragility, deep physical fragility, deep economic fragility, deep social fragility. Never before, even during a war or the Great Depression, was there a health and an economic and a social kind of seizure of sorts. And how do you think brands are going to react to this sudden three-way traffic coming in and kind of jamming them in with the consumer?
See, I think the fear, we are Indians. So when I speak for India, we will come back to our wayward ways pretty soon. We just need an excuse to say ki bhai ab sab theek hai, bhagwan ke haath hai. See, the beauty about India is for the last 75, 76 years post-independence, prime ministers have governed, but Ram has actually governed the country. It's all Ram Bharose. So, somehow we will tide this crisis and we'll be back. But the body blow that will be created or will be caused, and Mr. Bajoria, Neeta, or whatever his name, Neeta Bajoria. It says Neeta, so obviously even here you're using your wife's name. So Namit. Well, the name there says Neeta Bajoria. So anyway, so as Namit says, I think the issues are very severe. The issues are that unless you spur consumption, unless you spur demand, and remember one thing, and without using a name or something, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, Mr. Tata and I were on a webinar with 10 or 20 actually of the main Tata CEOs. One of the points that Mr. Tata made, which is very valid and very important point, he says consumers don't buy in an atmosphere of fear or fragility or uncertainty. Consumers buy when they're happy. The pandemic has caused a lot of, as Swapan also said, a lot of emotional distress. It has caused, to my mind, a lot of issues with consumers in terms of the way they behave. See, there is one thing when your lifestyle is disrupted. There is one thing when your life is disrupted. Lifestyle may be disrupted because of economic reasons. What COVID has done is it has disrupted the way we live, work, and play. It has disrupted people's education. You will have an entire generation of kids who will look at education differently. You will have travelers who will look at travel differently. A lot of people tell me, oh, but 9/11 changed the way we traveled. But we continue to travel. People talked about the video conference revolution and said, oh, it will decrease travel. It didn't decrease travel. Here we are confronted with a serious calamity. Where do I see the hope? I see the hope in the following sectors. I think sectors in India which have been neglected by every government, sectors like healthcare, pharmaceuticals, personal products, these will bounce back, and these will bounce back with vigor and robustness. But a lot of your core sectors are going to suffer for some time to come. And you're seeing this, your bellwether sectors are going to suffer. If real estate suffers, cement and steel automatically suffer. Cement and steel suffer also when automotive suffers. So you're seeing a dominoes effect. You're seeing a ripple effect in the economy, which very few people understand. As it is, we had a banking crisis and banks were not giving money to MSMEs. MSMEs form 80% of your organized oblique unorganized economy. So if banks today are under further strain of having to recover money on consumer durable or consumer financing, they will have less money to give out. You will have defaults even on housing finance. So I'm not painting a picture of morbidity, I'm painting a picture of reality. And the reality is, therefore, brands have to be smarter. Therefore, brands have to be in what I call the hand-holding domain. Brands have to become friends rather than transactional people. They have to be more relational oriented. They have to sell themselves softly rather than sell themselves in your face. And that, to my mind, is going to be an important denominator of the way forward.
Interesting, because increasingly what people are saying is that every brand has to be a health brand at the end of the day. And I was seeing an interview between Pranoy and Dara of Uber yesterday in the evening, and Dara went on to say that after the pandemic, almost 80% of their sales got wiped out. I'm surprised. It should have been more, but really he believes that today 50% of the business comes from Uber Eats and 50% of the business comes from the Uber car hailing service. But the fact of the matter is that I, as a consumer, will never step into an Uber because I will habitually distrust, the sanity of the car and the sanitization of the car. Which brings me back to the point that I think that the big brands during the pandemic were really the ones that failed consumers. I mean, you and I know what both of us went through with Amazon.com in terms of, uppricing disinfectants and uppricing the prices of sanitizers and all of that. And increasingly, all of us relied on the local Kirana shop for our supplies. Are the big brands going to be under greater assault in this pandemic? Are consumers going to be trusting the guy next door more than the big chap?
I don't think the trust factor will change dramatically. I mean, I have one view, and there I disagree with Dara of Uber, which is why Uber continues to make the kind of bloody losses it does. I think people will not ditch Uber in a hurry, just like people will not ditch air travel. What will happen is the Ubers and the airlines of the world will have to reconfigure. We flew in from Delhi to Goa on Vistara. You just had a different protocol of flying. So you adapt to that protocol. That becomes the new normal. So I don't think brands that offer a valuable service or value-added service will suffer. They just have to rejig the offering and the way they offer the product. So I don't think hotels, by and large, will run empty. But yes, you will have a restaurant which is earlier 100 covers go down to 50 because of social distancing norms, all of that. So in the short term, there will be pain. In the short term, there'll be a lot of consumer concern. There'll be consumer suspicion, which is why brands will have to allay consumer fears from an individual consumer perspective. Earlier, what used to happen? I would say, here's Uber, come if you want. Now I will have to change the offering. That here, if you ever want the safest ride between your home and office, these are the 10 things that we are doing at Uber today. Will you test us? So I will have to change the offering from moving to just offering a ride to offering the safest ride. So in many ways, I'll have to rejig the communication, and more importantly, I'll have to rejig the tonality. But Uber, all these guys will continue to do business because, see, consumers by and large, we don't change so dramatically. I mean, after 9/11, how much, even the security at hotels, today terrorists can walk into any hotel anywhere in the world. You think a metal detector is going to stop them? Every joker in every five-star hotel looks at the boot of your car. You could be strapped with IED or with explosives and walk straight into the ballroom and, burst the bomb and no one knows. So there's a lot of tokenism in what we're doing. But since this disease has actually resulted in public fatality, in fatalities that have been talked about, more will be changed in terms of the offering.
But I still believe, Suhail, that this entire pandemic will forever alter the sharing economy, because I think even within homes, what you share, who you share with, is done with a lot of, with a lot of caution. So even, places like WeWork and once again, the Ubers of the world, I believe those businesses are going to come under huge assault unless they reinvent themselves completely.
See, we are talking about the elite here. I mean, you're talking about WeWork and Uber.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it from an India perspective where almost 85% of the economy is the non-elite economy. Even if people want to socially distance themselves in Dharavi, where do they do
Correct. Absolutely.
Where do they do it in Narela? Where do they do it in Midnapur? Where do they do it in Koreahat? I mean, even Mamata Banerjee needs to socially distance herself for various reasons. She can't do it because she lives in Kalighat. So the reality is, where do you socially distance yourself? We're a country of 1.3 billion people. So I think, yes, more and more people will be concerned, but understand that there'll be economic compulsions. I don't think people are going to buy 4 toothpastes in one household or 4 because of the worry of COVID. Will people take more or will take greater care of themselves health-wise? Yes. Which is why I started by saying healthcare spends, pharma spends will increase. People will become more careful. People will reduce outings. But look, here's the thing. Your consumption in terms of economic spends is not reducing. You order in from outside, you're still spending a huge packet of money, depending on, obviously what you order. Also, to answer your other question about Kirana versus organized retail, both will flourish as both have flourished. What you will definitely see is a greater emphasis on contactless consumption and contactless purchase, which will give rise to a lot of digital transactions and to a digital economy. Who will be the beneficiaries? Telecom, because they will be providing you the data resources. Who will be the other beneficiaries? Obviously, people who are digitally powered, who are digitally enabled. So that's going to happen.
Do you also believe that after this pandemic, the entire axis is kind of tilted from an information and innovation economy to a soothing and kindness economy? And a lot of marketers and CEOs are talking about the fact that this is going to be a kindness economy. And how marketers were never ever used to being kind in any form or the other get to work around this?
I think it's a great point. In fact, I said this earlier, that your communication will have to be mired in empathy and compassion. So you will move from an economy where you could dictate as a manufacturer, as a brand, to an economy where you'll be more empathetic. You'll be more willing. Now, let me give you examples of how we are screwing up and or not screwing up. Many hotel chains across the world, not some of our Indian hotel chains though, many of the hotel chains across the world within 1 month of the pandemic said your platinum status or whatever status is now extended for 2 years. British Airways did the same with their airline program. Lufthansa and Swiss Air did that with Miles and More. Our jokers, no clue. American Express, however, did a great thing, but they were also, mandated by Reserve Bank on moratorium. I mean, who at Centurion card level needs a moratorium is for them to figure out that's the reality. So I'm saying brands have made the effort, but you're right. There are some brands that have made the effort because they genuinely believe in it. And there are some brands who are followers and are doing it out of tokenism. Those brands will suffer.
Name me some brands that have genuinely done it.
I think Lufthansa, Swiss Air have done it. JW Marriott as a group has done it.
Okay.
I think, who else? Yeah, these three come immediately. The Oberoi, gladly. And I've been having a lot of conversations with old Mr. Oberoi, and he's stuck in Bombay. And I have to tell you, that man at 91 is more cognizant of what hotels need to do. And they were the first to tie up with Bureau Veritas to look at the entire safety, screening, security protocol for all the Oberoi hotels. And I'm sure Harsh is on this, and Harsh is the kind of guy who will also take the lead, but Harsh is too shy and has not communicated it, at least to us. But, hotel companies are doing it now across the world. I can give you one example, and I swear by them, I only stay there when I'm abroad. I think the Four Seasons has done a marvelous job. They've done a marvelous job in 2 ways. Four Seasons New York on March the 25th, converted 50% of their hotel to first responders, where they said free stay. This is in New York, and it's the most, prized hotel in New York. Park Lane in London opened on the 4th of July. I obviously had bookings from May 30, which obviously no one could go to, but they called me. And the first thing they said was not about your booking. They had a 5 to 10 minute conversation where they asked about everyone in the family, health, blah, blah, blah. And then said, we don't want to pressurize you. There's no cancellation. If you don't show up, it's fine. We just wanted to know if we hold this. Now, this is the kind of outreach that brands need to do, which brands are not doing. But see, having said that, even brands have gone through a lot of pressure. Companies are sacking people like no one's business. People are cutting back staff salaries as they shouldn't have. And my only amazement is how weak are India's companies if 2 months of a jhatka made them get into such a state of ineptitude, weakness, fragility that we are experiencing today.
So here's my theory, and I'm a huge believer in this theory. And the theory is that for the first time in the history of mankind, the surface is under suspicion, which means the tea packet, the packet of tea on the shelf is under suspicion. The Tom Ford suit that you're about to try in an Emporio is under suspicion. Every surface is under suspicion. And given that situation, what is going to be the effect on retail? Because I will never know who has touched what I am about to touch. I will never know how well sanitized it is, in spite of, they proffering all kinds of services that they provide. And at another level, Suhail, how does the world kind of fit in between a Tom Ford suit and a PPE suit at one end? So isn't there going to be a great dichotomy in terms of marketing and, living with brands?
Don't be surprised if, and I'm not joking here, this will happen. You will have packaging companies reinvent the kind of packaging that you and I have never experienced. It'll be packaging that's refreshed by every touch. We don't know. See, innovation, who said that necessity is the mother of invention? And here, innovation will drive the future. You will see packaging companies enter. Don't be surprised if Tom Ford creates a suit, which is actually a protection suit as well. You've already got designers making designer masks. So the day is not far when they'll start making, protective suits. And you've already had some brands in the US which are getting very, very active with not only masks, with hand sanitizers, blah, blah, blah. So I don't think that train is going to be off the rails yet. That's going to continue. Having said that, look, I'm a great believer. In many ways, Indians are like the Romans. We are fickle people. We will forget this in 6 months. The day the deaths come down, everyone will become normal. Everyone will forget this, and we will wait for the next pandemic to hit us if and when it hits us. Life is not going to change that dramatically. I mean, people are saying, yaar, koi ghar se nahi niklega, ye wo ghanta, sab niklenge. We are all chuhas in the bill. Just now we are forced into the bill. Ek bar flood waters recede, sare chuhe bahar niklenge. So don't worry about it.
Okay, no, I'm not worried. I've been socially distant from 2000. So, for me, the current pandemic doesn't worry me. Coming back to some more issues, some of marketing's favorite phrases, experiential marketing. So what's going to happen to experiential marketing in an age of masking, in an age of only 50 people? How is Diageo going to be doing experiential marketing of their fantastic malls, and how are art galleries going to respond to openings? How is all of that going to change in terms of experience marketing?
So as far as Diageo and all are concerned, they will have to create, see, what is going to happen is the size of the pie is going to shrink. The size of the testing pie, the size of the marketing pie, the size of the target market pie, in the sense, suppose I wanted to test a malt. Earlier, I would have a big party in a big club in Calcutta or Delhi or Bombay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up little community outposts. So let's say one in Magnolias, one in Queen's Park, one in wherever. And I'm just going to invite 10 people and say, please invite your friends, or ask one person to invite 10 friends. So I'm going to shrink the size. There is no other way. So I'm going to continue. So I'll continue that testing process. Yes, some brands will suffer, but look at what the F&B industry has done. Sorry, cloud kitchens have come of age now. More and more people are happy with home delivery. More and more people don't want to step out. See, what is going to suffer grievously are things of massive consumption, public entertainment like multiplexes. They will suffer.
Yeah.
That is what I call avoidable consumption. Look, in Delhi, there were more people out when they opened the liquor stores than when they announced examination results. I will tell you a lot about Delhi, about the Indian consumer. The moment you opened booze stores, boom, everyone went.
Okay, so Rishad Tobaccowala of Publicis, and I've been quoting him one hell of a lot in several webinars because he seems to be making some very, very plausible points. He said that the earth will go on after the pandemic, but some dinosaurs will die. So, Sohail, which dinosaurs will die?
You know, this is, I mean, what is Rishad Tobaccowala? He's the head of Publicis in India or globally.
Possibly not. He's one of the global boys there.
Yeah. So you see,
He's a bright guy. He's a bright guy.
yeah, a lot of these guys also use quotations because they know that in these pandemic times, chala unko ek quote karo. Dinosaurs will die, blah blah. Of course, yeah, people see. You don't need a pandemic to kill a bad brand. And bad products don't die only when there's COVID. They die because they're terrible products or they're terrible brands. Will companies fold in? Of course. I see a lot of companies folding up, but they should not blame the pandemic. They should blame consumer awakening thanks to the pandemic, where the consumers realized how terrible these brands were. Or where you can do away with those brands as you have done for these 3 or 4 or 5 months. So I don't think suddenly because of the pandemic companies, yes, many companies have gone in for bankruptcy, but that's because they were literally hand to mouth, including some really large chains. We've seen in America, a lot of the retail chains, which were brick and mortar stores, have filed for bankruptcy. Brooks Brothers, who would have imagined Brooks Brothers would file for bankruptcy? They filed for bankruptcy. So yes, there is a lot, and especially when these brands are highly leveraged. But then, you know, there are people who make stupid comments. I mean, Rajiv Bajaj, oh, you should have flattened the curve before flattening the economy. These are redundant comments. These are comments which sound good on television, but they actually mean nothing. Because the point is, ultimately, all of us, whether it's a Rishabh Kothari or a Namit Bajoria, who's thankfully changed his name, now we know his gender, and Vivek Gupta, these guys are running businesses. If they don't run their businesses well, they will suffer. Now, look at the newspaper industry. Going hammer and tong, "Arey yaar, hum log ko bachao, hum log ko bachao." If you're selling decent newspapers, you will survive. If you're not, you won't. To blame the pandemic is ridiculous. And this is similar to, and you know, Vivek will bear me out, this is similar to all categories. Now, people are saying, and you mentioned this on Twitter as well. Now, if you look at the content that's now available on the OTTs, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, out of the blue, 4 days ago, one of India's foremost stars, insane guy, called me and says, "Bhai, mera to sala, main to farm pe tha, hum log ka to dhanda एकदम बंद हो गया क्योंकि सारे बड़े-बड़े actors OTT पे जा रहे हैं, हम लोग तो OTT करेगा ही नहीं, because we don't want to be television actors, we want to remain film actors." Has the film industry suffered grievously? Is the film industry an employer? Huge. But look at actually, and this is where I feel sad about the fact that the Prime Minister, who could have, and who's the only person who may be capable of doing it, has not done it. We have completely neglected, and it is not a political, emotional comment that I'm making. You have completely neglected and you have played with the dignity of migrant labor.
Oh, completely.
These were the people who were building your homes, your bloody mansions, your offices, running your factories in urban India. When you did that to them, if they ever return to these urban centers, they now know their real value. So you and I will end up paying more for their services, A. B, what's also going to happen is that the cost of this service is going to go up manifold. We have not yet seen the end, and the story isn't over about the grievous injury that we have caused them and what they will do in return, and rightly so, to the economy if they opt out and continue to be in rural India where they emerged from or where they came from. So these are serious economic issues which will have impact on the brand. Because earlier, and look at Kerala, for instance, more and more people, as the figures have shown, more and more people from the Gulf have now returned to Kerala because of their treatment in the UAE. Once they've returned, where is the money and the amounts they would repatriate? That has dried up. almost 67% of Kerala's economy was run by the repatriation of funds from non-resident Keralites. If they come back, do you have employment for them? No. Do you have Startup India? No. See, the problem is this government has launched more slogans than any goddamn advertising agency. So you've got Startup India, but uska ho kya raha hai? Like I said on television the other day, on Times Now, I said, we keep talking about TCS, Infosys, rah, 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 rah. If we were so bloody great, why the hell couldn't we create a Facebook or a Google? हम लोग बात करते हैं यार TCS है हमारे पास, भाई माँ तो सबके पास है, आपने उसके साथ शिक्षा क्या लिया आपने?
Yeah, that was just a dangerous statement.
Not कि यार मेरे पास माँ है, अरे माँ तो सबके पास है, आपने आपके ऊपर कौन से लाटू लगे हैं कि आप बोल दो कि भाई मेरे पास माँ? हमने घंटा किया यार, बाबा जी का ठुल्लू, इकोनॉमी, TCS, रोज साला अवार्ड होता है. अच्छा, awards are also shared by 6 people only. If the 6th bugger is not there, they give it to the 7th guy. Suppose the 6th guy is down with flu, then one 7th guy is given the award. Everyone is happy. It's a bloody cozy club. But the reality is, where is Indian ingenuity? And then you have Anand Mahindra saying Indian Jugaad. Jugaad is actually the worst invention of modern lexicon. Jugaad means an easy way out. So to finally say what, Swapan rightly asked, we need to bring back responsible innovation. We need to bring back innovation that spurs sustainability. And we need to bring back innovation that is responsible for creating a more robust, sustainable, safer India.
But a larger question before my last one to you, Sohail. What about the absolute abject absence of leadership globally during the entire pandemic? Barring the lady in New Zealand and stuff like that. Absolutely no leadership, no assuage of feelings, no kind of soothing the nerves, no political leadership coming out strong. How bad could that be for?
This is it. In India, we are now between the advertising guy and between a guy who can't speak. So, you're between a guy who says, Thali bajao, and the other, when you hear him, you want to hit your own head. Ab ye to hamare choices hain. So, if the leader of India, of the world's largest democracy says, 5 baje thali bajana, ghanti bajao, ye bajao, aur corona bhag jayega, then you have a minister who joins the Japanese Consul General Bombay to shout, go Corona, go. That bugger gets COVID, Ramdas Athwale. I mean, it's a goddamn comedy of errors. Look at Trump. Trump was in denial about COVID.
He's finally wearing a mask.
The point is, all said and done. And this I will give Modi credit for. Sometimes being completely tone deaf to other comments or other criticisms helps. We needed a lockdown, but we didn't need it at that time, and we needed it with greater notice. A. B. The 2 weeks we lost in the lockdown, we lost because we did not concentrate, to my mind, on ramping up testing and our healthcare system. Having said that, it is an absolute bloody shame that after so many years of independence, successive governments did not invest in public healthcare. You and I are blessed. All the guys who are on this call means they have digital technology on tap. We're all privileged. But look at what happens to the average Indian. And sadly, that average Indian votes for these guys.
And continues to. Which is sad.
But this is the tragedy. Look at how the courts have abdicated their responsibility. For the Supreme Court to bloody listen to Arnab Goswami's plaint and not bother about migrant labor is a shame on India's justice system. And let me tell you, history will judge us in very, very harsh and terrible ways when it does for the way we let down our country during this pandemic. Having said that, we don't have a choice. Modi is by far the best leader you have because look around you. I mean, would you rather be governed by Rahul Gandhi? No. If I needed someone who's completely insane, I would go to Agra or Ranchi or even Writers Building. But now even she's moved out of Writers Building. So, I mean, look at the insanity. Now you can't say anything to it. That's why I don't take names nowadays because like, pata nahi kiska naam lo, wo police summons aa jayega. So point I'm making is, yes, these are tough times, but I genuinely believe that India under Modi, because of who he is and because he's tough, we have some hope. You know, he won't succumb so easily. Having said that, I just hope Indian industry, and you know, Harsh is very important and powerful in all these chambers. I think the chambers, along with ministers, should take Startup India more seriously. I would say a chamber like Merchants Chamber should create the Startup Bengal chapter under the aegis of Startup India, where you encourage entrepreneurship within Bengal. Why the hell should you be worried about other chambers of commerce? In any case, you guys are competing every day. But I'm saying, you know, genuinely do some good in the sense through the Merchants Chamber. For instance, the Merchants Chamber, the point that Swapan made, I think the Merchants Chamber of Calcutta should actually take the lead in talking to merchants, you know, even through digital means across India about the new normal and what safety steps they should take and how you can help them. I'm saying people want chambers to be of great enablement and help. They just don't want to be your members in that sense. Like brands want partners now. Consumers want partners out of their brands.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but I'm just taking three from the audience. One which is very, very close to your heart, because I know that when the pandemic kind of started, you went hammer and tongue on these guys. So the question is, what is your call on Chinese products? Can Indian brands replace them realistically? Will it do so through the Atmanirbhar credo? And if yes, what kind of a timeline do you think this will happen within?
See, this whole China thing, you know, India is great at saying, "Arey yaar, China ko goli maro, China ka band bajayenge, ghanta bajayenge yaar." They are way ahead of us, way ahead. They're our biggest trading partner, or second biggest trading partner. I think $60 billion of trade goes between China and India.
I believe all the medicines are supplied by them.
Yeah, so it's very easy to say, "Yeah, China ko band bajayenge, China ko band bajayenge." What happened in Galwan, the reaction post that was necessary. And I think it was a measured response. Then people, you know, went hammer and tongs saying, why did the Prime Minister not mention the name of China? Now every guy knows Ladakh, China, you don't need to mention it. Having said that, I think this is a moment not for jingoism. And I said this again on that Times Now program where Rajiv Bajaj was also with me, where I said the following. When you say self-reliant, the ultimate objective is to satisfy the consumer. The consumer has to be delighted. I don't really care where the product is from. You'll be surprised, many people will not even know some of the products that they use, whether they're made in Pakistan or China or wherever. I don't think that's important. What is important is if we can start replacing some Chinese products in our country, which are easily replaceable. But for that, two things have to happen, which again, the government is responsible for. Number one, labor laws. Labor reforms are inadequate in our country. And unless you reform labor and unless you make it disciplined, as China has, but because of a different political structure, you won't go anywhere. Number two is cost competitiveness. Today, China doesn't compete only on cost, it also competes on process. So they've invested. We now need to make that investment. But, you know, we just can't say, yeah, we'll beat China and then walk the other way and hope that it'll happen on its own. It'll never happen on its own.
Okay, a lot of people spoke about something called revenge shopping, that, you know, after the pandemic and post lockdown, once things opened up comparatively, there would be a lot of revenge shopping from consumers. But I spoke to a lot of credit card CMOs who said that that actually didn't happen, and that, you know, school fees and stuff like that were the big ticket spend levels that happened over credit cards. What is your view on revenge shopping? Do you think it exists? Do you think it'll happen? I don't think it.
It'll not happen for the simple reason. Consumers, forget consumers. The average person across the world is worried about spends because he's worried about income, because he's uncertain about the environment. More and more people will conserve cash. Less and less people will spend. That habit does not augur well for brands because brands thrive on consumption. If there's no consumption, what the hell will I do with the brand? So people have to understand the equation. You have to make the environment less fragile, less threatening, less fearful for consumers to be in a more relaxed, more convinced, more believable state of mind for them to then take the next step of buying produce or buying products or buying brands. They will not buy these if there is latent fear that, oh, we don't know where our next meal is coming from. Pata nahi kal kahan se dhakka pad jaye. That is not going to be easy.
Last question. 5 key principles that companies or brands should follow to sustain and survive this black swan. Though, you know, I keep getting confused. Someone calls it a gray swan, someone calls it a black swan. But in your opinion, 5 things that brands must do to survive this entire.
5 is too many. I think they should just do 2 things. Number 1, imagine that the consumer is an immediate family member of yours. And therefore, what are the things you will put in motion? You will put in empathy, you will put in understanding, and you will put in care. These 3 will form the first in terms of treating consumer as family. Number 2, recognizing that consumers must be dealt with gently. There can't be any aggression either in the marketing of brands or in the communication of that marketing thereof. If you're able to do these 2 things, to my mind, the rest will follow. See, safety, security, sanitization, these will now become part of our daily life. It's like, you know, the way you brush your teeth. So I'm not too worried about will brands invest in safety and all. They will all invest. And you know, all the brands that are being stupid by saying, "Hamare paas 10 sanitizer hai, iske paas 2 hai," they're being stupid because now that'll become part of life. So you can't impress a consumer by saying, "Oh, I'm sanitizing my premises and there's contactless home delivery of food and all that crap." That won't happen. But go back to the point that I earlier made, and you have, see, the Marwadi community in India has actually been at the cusp of innovation, both in terms of products and in taxation. Taxation they've done wonders with, in the sense I don't think many people have even understood taxation other than you guys. Now is the time कि आप लोग एक ऐसा movement तैयार करो under Merchants Chamber. You can give Swapan and me sweat equity in the form of hing kachori from that new variety in Lansdowne.
Yeah. I'm
saying you start a company and only look at one country. No other country has that technology. And Harsh is on, if Harsh is still there, he's the guy to drive it. Just look at Israel and see what Israel has done through this pandemic.
Absolutely.
The only unsung country in terms of what it has been able to do with quality, with world-class products. Okay, there is a particular product, which is a screen, which is like a face shield. That face shield in itself, it's like something out of a Tom Cruise movie. It actually reads your temperature. It tells you about any viruses, non-human, of course. It tells you about any of the threats, blah, blah, blah. You just look at how Israel is ramping up technology in this space. Now, if you guys were to start a venture with these guys, so the 2 critical sectors will be, to my mind, packaging, because of what even Swapan said in terms of, you know, the consumer fear. And 2, is security, safety of a higher order. But as I said, your large sectors will be pharma and healthcare. Those will now flourish. People's lives will become important.
Thanks very much, Suhail. As always, a pleasure talking to you. Mr. Singh, if there are any closing remarks or stuff like that?
Can we take in 1 or 2 questions from the panelists?
Yes, why not? Why not? I think we can. Swapan, Suhail.
हम लोग कौन सा देश चला रहे हैं? We are free. We have nothing to do.
Hasbia, do you have, since you've been the most mentioned on this program, do you have anything to say?
Us, Harsh Neotia, you always mention the dawn of the city. उसकी छत्र छाया में जीना है, बाबू.
No. As always, as always, Suhail is in full form. I know he's relaxing in the lovely Arabian Sea coast, but nevertheless, no, I think I resonate with almost everything that he said. I don't have a specific question. I think Israel clearly is a great beacon of hope for all of us because it has handled its economy, it's handled its the disease, and now it's probably leading the innovation in terms of vaccine. So I think there's a lot to learn from there. But what exactly we can implement in India is a tough question. I think to begin with, we are just not that disciplined. We are just not, as a nation, that focused. And maybe that's going to be a bit of a long call rather than something that we can fix quickly. But certainly, if there is an inspiration to get from any country, that's certainly one of the countries we can aspire to look for.
Thank you, Harsh. We have Deepak Jalan. He's chairman of Link Pens and our past president. Deepak Bhaiya.
Hi Vivek. Thanks for inviting. It's always a pleasure to hear Suhail. So yes, of course, my opinion is on this pandemic. I think one thing which our country can learn is how could we improve our hygiene, habits. I think this is a great opportunity for the country, for the government to improve the hygiene, because you can understand in India, we have such bad habits, spitting on the roadside or throwing things here and there. I think this is one opportunity which I would say.
Now see, what's your name? Deepak?
I'm Deepak Jalan. We make Link Pens. I met you once or twice.
Now he should sack his marketing department. This was the time to actually run a campaign to say, lock your memories on paper with Link.
Oh, lovely.
सब घर पे बैठे थे.
Yes.
वहाँ तो बीवी का accounts का हिसाब लेना या कुछ, nothing else was happening. I'm saying brands have to think how to get into situations without, overselling.
Right.
For instance, if Deepak had or his people had run a campaign which said, have you written a letter today to your grandmother? Or have you written, what are your thoughts about the lockdown? What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about that? Have you written a letter for your class teacher? And then run a campaign with bloody India Post, if India Post is still functioning after what Jyotiraditya did to it. You would run such a brilliant campaign. People will remember you.
Right.
Pen to sab banata hai. But how do you create the relationship between Link and lockdown? Say
Thanks
that.
for giving tips. Yes.
Not saying. So I'm just saying the point I'm making is that every brand can actually use the pandemic and, as Swapan asked, the crisis, pre-crisis, post-crisis in a very strategic way and a very lovable and affectionate way.
Right.
So it's not too late. You can even run it now. But the point I'm making is that people will say, wow, Link came into my life. And actually, if you ran that campaign with any of these jokers like Times of India and all, it would work. You see why? Because people actually will write. And if you can create a platform where their writings are visible. In fact, if I were you, I would create the Link Lockdown Diaries, saying these are the people who wrote. Have a national competition. I mean, I can keep giving ideas, but that's not the point. Point I'm making is brands can actually use this to great affectionate advantage, not mercenary advantage. Or kaise, even a simple thing like a pen can impact my life.
Yes.
Thank you. Deepak, we have a lot of free ideas for you. You better pay him. Vishal, we are next. Vishal Jhajaria.
Thank you. Thank you, Suhail. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Suhail. You rightly mentioned that the government has not done enough to put the economy in shape and spur up the demand. Now, what are the 2 or 3 things you would suggest to government to do to put the economy in shape?
Number one, you have to give direct benefit transfers of a higher amount. Number two, you have to give corporate India a substantive and a meaningful tax holiday. Can I tell you, hotels, and I don't know what Harsh's experience, but the Taj CEO, Puneet Chatwal, told me that they're still paying excise and all for the months that the hotels were shut, which is bloody ridiculous. You know, NDMC, which owns the Taj Mansingh in Delhi, is still asking for rentals, which is ridiculous. Look at what the UK has done. The UK has not only done this, the UK has actually gone out of the way to allow 80% of your employees to be on furlough with 80% of their salaries being paid by the government. So there are many companies I know, including Anjan Chatterjee of mainland China. Aap usse baat kari. He will tell you that he was opening a restaurant in March, which obviously has gotten postponed, but his entire staff, 80% of his staff is on board, and 80% of that salary is being paid by the UK government.
In fact, the UK government actually told people as of yesterday that £10 worth of non-alcoholic drink and food is on us, but please go out and eat in restaurants. So that's such a great boost for the entire restaurant. And
the problem is, and you know, this is a closed user group, even if it is not, I don't care. The problem is, for years, India has been running on slogans. The bureaucrats are the biggest scoundrels. The rascals are not the politicians. जो सबसे बदमाश tribe है, वो bureaucrats की tribe होती है. वो ना तो काम करेंगे, ना आपको काम करने देंगे. You see the 1.15 lakh crore package that they have announced. It is not true. That is not the figure. It is actually less than 1% of GDP. You look at what America has done. B, yes, what Modi has done remarkably well, and this I've been told by economists, by people who have said that the scheme to give people the 6,000 rupees has gone into bank accounts. Yes, that has happened. But where is the stimulus for small and medium scale businesses? No one understands that India is run by SMEs, MSMEs. India is not run by the large corporations. और आप देखिए, and यही मैं बोल रहा था पहले about migrant labor, जहां आपकी migrant labor नहीं रही, your foundries will shut. What will happen to your steel companies? Your coal handlers will shut down. What will happen? People are not aware of what the real situation is. So they must give greater stimuli, better tax holidays, and third, there has to be a forcing of the hands of the banks to give more credit. Banks today are not giving credit. Ab jo bhi keh lo. You know, people say, nahi, we are giving credit. Bullshit. Banks are also scared. Yeah, you tell me, if I'm the bank chairman, I'm giving you a loan based on your papers today. I don't want to go to jail tomorrow. Why the hell will I give you a loan? I have a 3-year term as a public sector bank CEO. I'll go after 3 years. So these are some real issues. Having said that, let me tell you, Modi hai to mumkin hai in this context. You see, if he wasn't there, and let's say you had Rahul Gandhi by some accident, and we are prone to accidents in this country, it would be worse. So we are only blessed with a lesser evil. I'm not saying we are still blessed with the angel.
Thank you. And before I go for the vote of thanks, my last question. There is so much of chatter about digital. I mean, you know, everything is, except for the toilet, everything is digital. You think this will continue, or this will come down or increase in our lives after the lockdown is lifted?
You know, I've always said that I'm not a good futurist or Nostradamus. I don't know. Having said that, please understand, when you even talk digital, what is it that you're actually referring to? If you're looking at digital transactions of a commercial nature, that's happening because the Paytms, the RuPays, and all of the world have infiltrated. But are you talking that your entire life will go digital? I don't think so. आप मेरे को बोलिए, राज केजरीवाल की बेटी की शादी हो रही है नवंबर में. For those who know Raj Kejriwal in Calcutta, you think he'll have a digital marriage? वो तो फोन नंबर नहीं डायल कर सकता अपने फोन का, वो साला कहाँ से डिजिटल करेगा? So यही बात है ना. So you know, how will you go that digital? आप बोलिए हमारे normal weddings में there are 1,000 people attending a wedding. कहाँ आप digital करोगे? कहाँ social distancing करोगे?
I meant media. Sorry, I should have added the word media.
No, see, now you tell me, how's the newspaper industry doing?
Bad.
Bad. But it wasn't doing brilliantly before the pandemic either.
Agree.
So then, up Times of India, which is making 610 crores of profit last year, is saying, I will deduct salaries, I will cut down staff. अरे तुम्हारे 3 महीने में बैंड बच गया यार. Now let me tell you, I don't know digital or non-digital, but I only know one phrase, and that, Vivek, will help you. The more you monetize your content, the bigger you will become. But in order to monetize content, you have to invest in content creation. The more you invest in content creation, you will be the winner. Ultimately, everyone will pay. Anand Goenka from March 22 to May 15 or May 20, every morning उसके साथ वो WhatsApp आता था, today's Express, today's edition of Financial Express. वो बंद हो गया, they've gone behind a paywall. So has Hindustan Times. So has Times of India. Because people have realized that even the Indian will pay for content if the content is meaningful. So I don't think you need to worry about a replacement model. And finally, let me say this. This is my enduring belief. You know, consumers don't make a distinction so dramatically between, oh, this is digital, this is formal media, this is newspaper, this is magazine, this is television. It is the consumption pattern in which they consume. For instance, if I'm on the go, I will look at my phone. I could be looking at an NDTV website, but NDTV's website is the origin of its television program. Or I could be looking at a Hindustan Times tweet, which could emerge from an Hindustan Times article that they've carried in the morning newspaper. So ultimately, it is content. The delivery vehicle will change depending on who your consumer is.
Absolutely.
But I don't think there'll be, you know, ये बोल रहे हैं कि यार newspaper industry खत्म हो गई है, ये वो सब नहीं है. Yeah, you want to sack people using this as an excuse, is a great excuse to use. But beyond that, I don't think you need to worry. I don't think it'll disappear. See, I know 2 newspapers very well. One, though, I know them extremely well. Financial Times, because Lionel Barber is a very dear friend. The current editor, Rula Khalaf, is a very dear friend. Financial Times went digital under Lionel Barber, and they minted, and they're continuing to mint money. The FT digital product has changed their fortunes. The other company which has now started to mint money is the New York Times. And the New York Times, please remember, 5 or 6 years ago were under threat. So वो लोग भी started minting money because of the expansion. But have they shut down New York Times? No. Has there been a dip in circulation? Not dramatically. So it's all about you know, how your consumers will consume and what delivery mechanism they will consume through. ठीक है जी.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
अमित जी बोलिए, आप भी बोलिए.
Yes.
Mr. Namit Bajoria, any question that you have?
No,
Mr. Manish Goresaria, last 2 questions, if you can permit. Suhail and Swapan.
If he has to use his wife's name, you can imagine how.
No, this is Namit.
No, I know what he's saying. But of course, the session is really.
Can we have last 2 questions, one from Namit, other from Manish ji?
No, I think my takeaway from this session is basically that we have to change the form of communication post this period, because the way we communicate, in fact, I like this example of Uber, that we should tell the consumer how safe we are and what are we offering, instead of just hopping on the price, which as an Indian we always used to do. I think the best takeaway for me was this. And of course, now I have to change my viewpoint in terms of spending my budget on marketing. So I really need to rethink and start spending on my marketing also, which I had stopped, unfortunately. So,
very good.
So Manish is my co-chairman. I would like to ask him to ask a question and then propose a vote of thanks.
Yes, ask a question and then propose a vote of thanks.
Hi, Suhail. I mean, for many businesses, trade shows are the biggest source of leads. Now, post-COVID, what should be done? Because a lot of businesses, they participate, they show their products at the trade show, but because of the pandemic, the trade shows have all been postponed or cancelled. So do you have any views? I mean, what should be done for the companies who are basically working on trade shows?
No, I'm not a trade show expert and I haven't been to any trade shows yet. All I know is that this is not going to last forever. So you may have a dip. I mean, they canceled Wimbledon. Yeah, what can be more blasphemous than that? So I don't think it's going to continue. Is saal hoga, but by next year it'll return. But as I said in Swapan, in my conversation, these are blips on the radar that we have seen because of extraordinary circumstances. I don't think the general pattern of consumer behavior or human existence will change. We will just be more guarded. We'll be more careful. We will choose wisely. I don't think trade shows will end. Trade shows will have more security and safety and health protocols in place. So till that trade show, you need to worry. But other than that, you don't need to worry. It's not as if trade shows will stop. You can't, like I'll tell you, Pawan Munjal of Hero had a town hall with 260 of his dealers digitally. And it went well. It really went well. But the point is, will you do it every year? No. Because for a lot of the dealers, these dealer conventions are also an incentive. They're a way of being rewarded. So I don't think it's a permanent state of affairs. But yes, as long as it is there, it is a bit distressing, but that's about it.
Correct. Thank you.
Chalo bhai, kaun vote of thanks kaun de raha hai?
So please go ahead and give your.
Badi galti ki. Today there's no bloody lighting of the lamp. How sad is Calcutta? Light lamp, then you set the stage on fire.
Stage is already on fire, Suhail.
Now, Manishji, you can propose a vote of thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Namit. Hello, friends. On behalf of MCCI and its managing committee, I shall like to propose a hearty vote of thanks to the wonderful session that we have just concluded. Our very special thanks to Mr. Suhail Seth and Mr. Sapan Seth for the wonderful conversation on the topic business of marketing post-COVID-19 world. It was a stimulating and enlightening discussion with very apt and pointed questions from sharpshooter Mr. Sapan Seth and fielded and responded exceedingly well by Mr. Suhail Seth.
ये सारा पहले से लिखा हुआ पूरी स्पीच है यार. Just ऐसे ही बोल दो thank you. Everyone knows कि पहले लिखी हुई स्पीच.
Special thanks to Mr. Hardeep Singh for the meticulous coordination in organizing this session. Many thanks to our MCCI President, Mr. Vivek Gupta, under whose dynamic leadership MCCI is arranging a lot of meaningful activities and webinars, even in these times. Thanks to my dear friend Namit, who has spearheaded this another successful and informative webinar. Many thanks to all the participants for the august presence, and I am sure that each one of us can carry some good bit of business wisdom from this webinar. Thank you once again. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Suhail and Sapan. Thank you for taking out your precious time and giving us a good insight about what we were expecting from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sapanda. Thank you, Suhail.
Swapan
Would you like to have the last word, Suhail?
No, I'm saying Swapan will
Have the last word?
Yes.
No, Swapan will speak as well, but I'm just saying, I've always believed that doing anything with people from Calcutta is special. And I'm grateful that, you thought of Swapan and me for this, because there is no place which is better than Calcutta. And I hope and pray that it continues to be as special as it always has been. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you very much. Good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Swapan, for coordinating
you.
it.
Our pleasure, sir.
And thank you, Suhail, for
Thank you.
doing your bit.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
All the very best then.
Bye-bye.
Vivekji, thank you very much also from my side.
Thank you, Hardeep ji. Thank you.